Hi, Mark here. What we're going to be doing today is showing a few ways of rigging up the new Toro Tamer hollow core spliceable super braid. This is a polyethylene gel spun line, like several others that are on the market. The unique characteristic about ours is that it is a 16 strand product. And there are some other advantages which we can get into on the website, extolling its virtues. A hollow core line has a couple of advantages. One, where we're trying to gain some line capacity, it'll pack a little tighter, and lay down on itself, and that allows for greater line capacity on a reel. That's advantageous, for obvious reasons. The second reason, and the primary reason for our use of a hollow core line, is it allows you some rigging options. Companies like Daho, Sato, for instance, have a number of different tools that are available that allow us to do the hollow core rigging very easily. And there are some other ways of using the line we can discuss. But I wanted to try and do as quick a video as possible, showing a few different ways of rigging up this new product. Nice to work with. Just from a diameter standpoint, I'll try and work with the 80-pound line here. This product goes all the way down to 40-pound, which is unique. We do a 40, 50, 60, 80, 100, and 130 pound at present. And you need a few tools for working with a hollow braid in your leader material. First would be a good pair of scissors or cutters. This is a pair of scissors, and frankly, I'm not terribly fond of use of scissors for chopping spectra. You don't want to use your standard cutter or pair of dikes on the braid, because at that point you're crushing the line, and that makes it a little more difficult to open up and work with. So a good pair of dedicated clippers that are just used for the braid is a good way to go. So I'll throw those things away. We'll work it right now with the 80-pound line, although I'm only doing that because it's easier for people to see. My preference is I'd rather be showing you how to work with the 40, but for that one I'm going to need a little better camera than we have going here. Once you have your braid, you do want to fluff it up a little bit so it's so you can open her up, and there are a few ways of doing that. What I'll do first off here is connect a solid line, quote unquote solid, which would be this product. Will be our multicolor depth counter line, and the idea, the thinking is, a colored line, by the way this gel spun line works, colors, if you're working with a colored line on a hollow core form, typically you're going to have little glumps of the coloring product inside the hollow braid, which makes it hard to work with. I don't care who the manufacturer is. A colored braid is harder to work from a hollow standpoint than would be a solid. Also, the hollow is more expensive. So on several of my reels, I'll use the metered line like we're showing here, that changes color every 25 meters or so. And let's say I've spooled the reel up with that, but I still want the benefit of a hollow, make use of the hollow line for a knotless connection, which flows through the guides more easily. So at that point, what I'll want to do is insert the solid into my hollow line for a length ranging from 3 to 5 feet or so, and then I can terminate that in a few different ways as far as that connection goes. Sato being one of them, serving it is another one, tying an overhand knot even is another one. I prefer not to use knots with this product on a hollow rig, simply because knots always have a disadvantage in that you're having the line lay on top of itself at a pressure point, and that pressure point can result in weakening the line. If we do a hollow splice, or putting a line inside of line and rigging it in that form, or making a loop for instance, by doing that we end up with basically 100% knot strength, versus something that by definition is going to be less than that when we work with another line. So to start off things, let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit with the camera. Yeah, let's get this guy in here just a little bit more. There we go. And what I want to do is take a moment to open the line up, and for that I'll just kind of tease it a wee bit here. And I'm using a fairly large needle to go in here again because it's easier to see. really tease it. Just I made kind of a diagonal cut with the product. It opens up quite nicely. And again, I'm not using the smallest needle. The needle I'm going to start off with and using here is a reverse latch needle. And more about the different types of needles that are produced in just a second. But you can see how easily the stuff feeds into itself. It just really, opens up nicely, very, very nicely. You can see I just kind of push that braid onto the needle. And again, this is the beauty of the 16 strand. It just opens up beautifully. Now I can, at that point, start going in a little more quickly. And that's not the typical way of doing things, but it's not a bad way of doing it, as you can see. Easy to work with. And I've got to say, I was kind of a knot guy. Well, I've been a knot guy. Some of the other folks at the shop were much more keen on working with the hollow product and doing some of the knotless rigging. I was slow to make that changeover, but having made the changeover, I do see the benefits quite clearly. Now I'm using a reverse latch needle. There are 3 different needles that you wind up using. One is a loop needle here, and that's great for opening up your braid. Is one reason for using that product. The other is to take the line and pull it on through. I'm going to use the reverse latch needle for that. And the other type of needle is simply one that we use for threading, which would be hollow. And then you've got a kind of a softer point here for inserting into the braid along with your leader material. In this case, as mentioned, I'm just going to wind up opening up the latch needle. Let's see if I'm working from the right side. Yeah. Okay. And hopefully you can see how that little puppy opens up. See, there's a little catch there. And I'll take some of my solid braid, if I can have some fingernails that work for me properly. I'll put that inside that little latch, and then I'll close it. Okay? So now she's locked inside. And I'll begin that process of inserting one line into the other. Again, if you wind up getting sawed off on a bite and you need to add more line, well boy, hollow core is easy to work with from that standpoint. But this is, again, a nice way of adding more line is simply by going with a hollow. If you start off with hollow, even easier still. But if you're with the solid, so be it. No big issue. Now I'm going to thread this line inside, and we're getting there. Almost over that latch. Now I'm over it. Pretty darn easy so far, isn't it? Yeah. And typically you're going to do this for several feet. And what happens is that your braid it's like the Chinese finger trap. As it's pulled taut, it's going to hold that line in place. So you're not applying pressure on one point, you're applying pressure over that whole area where the line is inserted, one into the other. It's very simple to work with. Again, is the beauty of a 16 strand product versus some of the other less expensively made products out there. It simply doesn't open up as well. Now if I've gone up the required distance here of say 3 to 5 feet or so, what you'd wind up doing at that point is simply poking your needle through the braid, bring it on up, opening up your latch once you've made her through. Putting the line back over itself. Just go ahead and snip that. Okay, and now we have achieved a splice. Pretty doggone easy. And there are a few things you can do. Now, even though I've only have a few feet, if I give this a pull, she is not coming out because of that finger trap situation I mentioned. It will take some pressure and not pull. Very, very cool. But that's not where you really want to leave things. You can apply a little bit of our Spectre adhesive at this point where the lines transition, or make use of a Sato crimp. That's an even better way to do things. Or you can take the time to serve. What I like about the Sato crimp, which we'll talk about in a sec, is that it's pretty much idiot-proof. I can do it, wife can do it, anybody can do it, and have yourself a very good, secure connection. In this case, I simply wanted to show how simple it was to make this type of rig up. And we could be working with just as easily, doing things in reverse, putting a leader inside. But right now what we've done is we've added hollow to our quote-unquote solid line. And now what do we do at the other end of things? Well, a few things are possible. We could make a loop instead with this line, or we could go ahead and insert our leader material inside the braid. That's what we'll wind up doing here next. We'll do that as an example of how we would terminate. And for that, maybe we'll go ahead and play around with the Sato crimp and show how that one's done. Okay, working with the Sato crimp, first thing you want to do is take one of these little crimps from Gary Sato. You can get these in kits, you can get them individually. I use a small kit that has several of the sizes I tend to use most. And you'll put this little crimp inside the threader that comes in his starter kits. Put the crimp onto that little threader, as you can see here. I just did. Take your hollow braid, go through the loop like that, and then slide that little crimp onto your braid. Okay, step one is done. Pretty difficult so far. So now I've got my crimp onto my braid. Yeah. And we have some leader, a little quattro fluorocarbon. And you want to use your threading needle for this. Alternatively, you can also simply file down the end of your leader, mono, fluorocarbon, whatever. File it so it's a little bit smoother, and you could gently insert this after you've opened up the braid. I tend to use one of the hollow needles for this purpose. You select the one that's closest to that mono size. There are a number of them that go by diameter. Insert your leader inside that needle, and now we're going to go ahead and take this inside the braid. Again, 16 strand is one of the keys here because the 16 strand is by far the easiest to work with. It just is. It opens up nicely, very nicely. You can see how simple this process is. Life is easy when you're working with 16 strand. It just opens. Toro Tamer Spliceable Super Braid is a very, very good product. I think you'll see when you use it. Now currently we sell this product in 25 meter spools like we're using here. The little guys, very convenient to work with. And we also sell it in larger spools at 1,000 meters, which works out to about 1,100 yards, 1093 to be exact. And that's a good length for use. It'll cover you certainly for 2 or more reels in most applications. We do this product, as I've mentioned, in a number of different tests, 40 pound being the smallest. And then we go 50, 60, 80, 100, and 130, so we cover all the bases. As time goes, we may wind up producing this in a little bit even heavier tests, and who knows, maybe even smaller. This hollow braid lends itself to an awful lot of applications. As I keep on pushing the needle on through the braid. The mono, of course, or the leader is coming along with it, and that leader is going to be inserted inside the braid material. And then we'll use the Sato crimp to secure it at one end, and again that finger cuff comes into play to apply pressure evenly on the leader so it doesn't slip once it's inserted. It's a brilliant way of doing things. And there are a lot of benefits in working with a line like that, because it just flows through your guides. There's no knot, no bump. Especially, this is a problem when we get higher in terms of line test. The higher we go with line test, obviously the bigger the knots are going to be. The larger the knots, the more of a bump it is getting out, and that's not a good thing. Knot can work very, very well, but it'll never test as well as having this pressure applied throughout the line. And the diameter works against it. And adding on more spectra instead of having to do a bimini to bimini in a 30 to 40 turn bimini at that, we're able to do things very, very quickly and easily. This is not a big time consuming process, as you can see. So now let's say I've taken my leader up again 3 to 6 feet through. I'll come on through the sidewall. I'll bring that leader on down. And there's my leader. You can see here. At the end, put away the needle. Make sure your line has gone over your leader material and you're not protruding, as we've done. Okay, let's try and zoom up a little bit maybe. Okay, and I still have my Sato crimp up here. And so now the trick is, let's bring this Sato crimp by way of your fingers over your leader, over the braid. We're going to work it on down to where we started. I like going, maybe 1/8 of an inch from the end. Something close to that. Okay. And then Sato makes a dandy tool for this purpose. This is not your basic crimper. And the thing that makes this more expensive is because it is not your basic crimper. It is shaped, so it's a little narrower on one side than the other. So we take the appropriate well here on the crimper. I'll pick the second one for the test that I'm working with. And we'll give it one crimp there. And then we'll rotate this about 90 degrees. And we'll flip this over, because now we're going to have it coming from the other direction. Make sure we're back in the same well again. And we give it another crimp. Okay, that's it. That's secured. And now if you want to be even a little trickier, you'll apply a little bit of that Shark Bait Spectra adhesive or another adhesive product there at the end. Clean it up a little bit, and you have a connection that's not going anywhere. Okay, we have applied a leader. We've connected this leader to our solid braid. And we've killed two birds with one stone. Well, maybe not killing birds, but I tell you, that's how quick and easy this is. This is not a 30-minute time-consuming process.